by this recognition for my work both in the public and private sector by the most prestigious business and management organization in the country. Thank you very much, MAP. Allow me to briefly share my life in public service, both in the public and private sector, and its contribution to nation building, as I thank individuals and institutions that played essential roles for my being here today as the 48th MAP Management Person of the Year, which also happens to be my birth year, 1948. These individuals and institutions have shaped my values and principles in good governance, and they have supported me along the way. Allow me first to dedicate this award to my father, Engineer Atanasio Singson, and my mother, Dr. Andrea Lasso Singson, for teaching me the values of simplicity, integrity, and honesty, daily prayers, and hard work. My father, Engineer Atanasio Singson, was a DPWH district engineer in Ilocos Sur, who stood by his values and had to refuse a request of an influential member of the Commission on Appointments of Congress, who happened to even be his cousin. Because of this conflict, he decided to resign and work with the National Power Corporation as a lead structural engineer for NPC's huge infrastructure projects like the Ambuklao and Binga Dam. My father worked hard, stood by his principles, and showed us how to live a simple life. I would like to thank the Responsible Parenthood Council, my first job was in family planning, and the Development Academy of the Philippines, led by the late Dr. Onofre D. Corpus and the late Horacio Boy Morales, who introduced me to grassroots community development work, which I found more fulfilling as a fresh graduate of the UP College of Engineering in 1971 instead of joining the corporate world. Upon the recommendation of my immediate boss, who is here this afternoon, Attorney Milton Mendoza, I was appointed as the first resident manager of the AP Tagaytay Training Center when it was officially opened by then President Ferdinand Marcos in 1974. There, I learned to deal with high-ranking government officials, attending the 13-week Live-In Career Executive Development Program and other Live-In Management programs, and made sure that these participants were kept happy, busy, and comfortable with our Spartan accommodations. In the AP Tagaytay, I met Secretary Jose Ping de Jesus, a person who would have a profound influence in all of my work in the public sector. As the AP Senior Vice President, Ping de Jesus, known to us as JPJ, was running the Organization and Management Development Program of the AP while I was running the training center facilities. My goal in life, you will not believe this, was to retire at an early age of 40. So I left the AP and decided to become an OFW in the Middle East as part of the CDCP Ultra overseas team so that I could earn in US dollars. Indeed, I was able to retire even before 40 with my dollar savings. I did retire at 38, constructed a retirement home in Baguio, but that was not going to be my way. The Lord had different plans. Here again, for what I refer to as divine intervention, Secretary Ping de Jesus asked me to rejoin government. Sabi niya, marami ka ng ipon, pwede ka nang bumalik. While enjoying my short-lived early retirement in Baguio, I did eventually join sometime late 1986 Secretary Ping de Jesus and another mentor, Undersecretary, who is also here, Chito Sobrepeña, in the office of the Cabinet Secretary of President Corazon C. Aquino. My assignment at the Office of President, which included supporting the Office of Special Concerns with Cabinet Secretary Ping de Jesus and USEC Chita Sobrepeña, prepare the official trips of President Cory Aquino to ensure that government services reach the furthest and the poorest municipalities of the country. President Aquino, on record, traveled to 54 provinces from Batanes to Tawi-Tawi. This assignment meant traveling as advance party to provinces under very stressful and challenging circumstances, including sleeping on classroom tables and hospital beds, since we were deep into places without proper accommodations. I am referring to places like Tawi-Tawi, Basilan, Batanes, and other places in Mindanao. Some of these were being visited by a sitting Philippine president for the first time. Butch, Batanes yan. I was also assigned as Executive Director of the Coordinating Council of the Philippine Assistance Program, a project with the U.S. government, which was tasked to implement the creation of special economic and development zones and key infrastructure projects like Calabarzon. That's where Calabarzon started, the Pavia Iloilo Economic Zone, the Gensan Seaport, and the promotion of then what was known as BOT, which eventually was transformed to PPP, among other projects. Allow me to thank the late President Cory Aquino for my appointment to BCDA as the Vice Chairman and the first Executive Vice President in 1972, when RA 7227 was passed creating the BCDA Act. Bata ako pa dyan. We made significant progress in generating employment and economic growth through conversion projects of former military bases. Among the major projects which stand out even today is the Heritage Memorial Park, which was our first fundraising project in BCDA. The privatization of Camp John Hay and Poro Point. The privatization and redevelopment of the Clark Air Base into what is now known as the Clark Special Economic Zone and the Clark International Airport. With the leadership of SBMA Chairman Dick Gordon and as a member of his board, we were able to privatize several assets turned over by the U.S. military and SUMI. But to me, our biggest contribution to our economic development was the privatization and development of Fort Bonifacio and Villamor Air Base. I personally got involved in negotiating and clearing the informal settlers in this area. And the most significant was clearing Imelda Park, which is around the American Battle Monument, where all of the chiefs of staff and generals stayed. In all this resettlement, we made sure that the relocation was done with fairness, compassion, providing a reasonable and acceptable relocation for all affected families, be it a general or a regular master sergeant. And that development included Kalayaan Military Housing on C5, the Villamor Housing, the Centennial Village, and Diego Silang Housing, among others. The privatization of the 214 hectares of Fort Bonifacio, known as the real estate deal of the century, with the winning consortium, guess who? Metro Pacific Consortium, raised for government a total of 30.4 billion pesos. I believe the government received the biggest check payment of 19.6 billion as down payment for that successful bidding of Bonifacio Global City. Thank you to the professional management team of BCDA and the board of BCDA, which I see some of them here, like Archie Bartolome, who embraced good governance in all of our privatization undertakings. From BCDA in 1996, I joined the BCDA Joint Venture Corp Company with the Metro Pacific Consortium, which is now known as the Fort Bonifacio Development Corporation, as Senior Vice President in charge of Infrastructure Development. I was working there with SVP Charlie Rufino. At FBTC, I got directly involved with the help of our foreign-based urban planners and consultants in the implementation of the upscale development of BGC, using for the first time in the country floor area ratios in determining buildings. GIS for all of the underground utilities you see in BGC. Deed of restrictions, handbook for all the lot owners and buyers, which has created long-term value even up to today. In July 1998, President Erap Estrada appointed me back as chairman and president of BCDA to pursue more privatization and PPP projects using former military baselands and assets. I was told that the President Erap wanted me back at BCDA because of the transparent and successful biddings of Fort Bonifacio military lands. From there, we continued to do more conversion projects to complete the master plan of all the baselands transferred to BCDA. Another individual that I would like to thank is a former colleague in the Office of the Cabinet Secretary, and this is Undersecretary Chito Sobrepeña, who is here today. Chito was the one who invited me to the community where I still belong today, ang Ligaya ng Panginoon community, a family-based covenanted church organization. After attending regularly the breakfast meetings of the Brotherhood of Christian Businessmen and Professionals, BCBP, sabi siguro ni Chito, may pag-asa pa to si Mr. Singson. After going through formation programs of LNP, I eventually became a district coordinator of ang Ligaya ng Panginoon. Fast forward, while attending a Ligaya Coordinators Retreat sometime in May 2010, I clearly remember that day. On the first day of our retreat, I got a call from a member of the selection committee, if I'm not mistaken, that might have been Bertilin, of the incoming President Noynoy Aquino, asking if I would be open to being considered as Secretary of DPWH. I told the caller I was in a retreat and I said I will pray about it. The immediate answer to me was our prayers will be answered. For some coincidence, the theme of our retreat, led by our Father Herb Snyder of the Loyola School of Theology, was on becoming radical disciples for our Lord. With proper discernment and prayers, the community leadership of Ligaya ng Panginoon, with head senior coordinator Tony Panahon, and then Stanky Mayor, they gave their full support that I should be open to taking on the job of DPWH as a mission field, to being a radical disciple for the love of God and service to fellow men. And again, for some reason, the Bible reflection on the day President Noynoy Aquino interviewed me for the first time was the reading from Matthew, "Enter the narrow gate, for the road to life is narrow and difficult." At that point, it was very clear that the message of entering the narrow gate and following the narrow road was clear message for me to accept the government position. Of course, I had to consult and inform my wife Bingay and my family of that major decision. My daughter Nika's response was, "Are you crazy to accept that job?" So my acceptance of the most challenging job in public service was based on the value of love of God and service to fellow men. I knew my life in DPWH was going to be very challenging, long working hours and days, a huge pay cut coming from Manila as president, and I even had to sell my Alabang Golf membership to augment my government salary. Knowing that DPWH was always in the top 3 of the most corrupt government agencies that included BIR and the PNP was my biggest challenge. Allow me to thank my brothers and sisters in the leadership of ang ligaya ng Panginoon for their guidance and continuous prayers during my full 6 challenging years with DPWH. Only 3 former secretaries were able to complete their terms with DPWH. After Malacanang announced that I was going to be the incoming secretary, I asked a good friend, Ms. Yoli Villanueva Ong, to do a survey for us to know what the general public expected from DPWH. The survey results showed that people simply expected from DPWH that government funds and resources be used for the right projects, right cost, and right quality. So it was very clear in our first DPWH Mancom meeting that we had to change the culture of DPWH, and with the help of some members of the DPWH Mancom, we drew up our good governance and anti-corruption measures. We developed our management mantra and strategic objectives on the basis of the 3 R's. Right project, right cost, right quality. Eventually, President Noynoy added 2 more R's. Right on time and by the right people. The culture of DPWH was to change, and I had to retire about 25% of the employees, replacing them with 30-year-old qualified young registered civil engineers across the country. We hired as much as 1,500, offering them a career in DPWH with a salary of approximately about $600 so that they don't have to go overseas as contractual personnel. They, up to today, are still staying in DPWH as their career continued to grow. This award is not just a recognition of my efforts, but a testament to the commitment of the late President Noynoy Aquino to his daang matuwid way of governance in serving the country. Sabi niya, walang wangwang, no entitlements. Kung walang korap, walang mahirap. And I remember these very words coming from him. Kayo ang boss ko. I had President Aquino's full support in the transformation of DPWH to become the lead infrastructure arm of government. The Philippines got its highest rating ever in the 2014 Transparency International Rating for Corruption Perception Index. With the help of DBM Secretary Butch Abad and the full support of the department secretaries, we were able to transform our infrastructure convergence program, developing infrastructure roads and bridges using national road standards to major tourism destinations of our country as prioritized by the late Secretary Mon Jimenez. For tourism convergence, we were able to complete 2,500 kilometers worth 84 billion of tourism roads to these tourism destinations. We were able to complete, with the help of Secretary Brother Armin Luistro, who entrusted to DPWH the construction of school buildings. We were able to institute for the first time the use of PPP for school buildings, and we were able to wipe out the DepEd classroom backlog. To Secretary Mar Rojas and June Abaya for the national road standards leading to airports and seaports, and to Secretary Cesar Purisima and NEDA Secretary R.C. Balisacan for supporting many of our PPP projects like CALAX, NLEX Connector, the NAIA Expressway, Cebu Cordova Bridge, the NAIA Expressway, among others, and the Skyway. We also started other convergence programs in the area of flood control management. There are too many to mention here this afternoon, which are based on river basin master plans and using the integrated water resources management principles and introducing the use of bioengineering solutions. Thank you to Cabinet Secretary Rene Almendras, who was very much in the thick of the transformation. With the guidance of the Institute Solidarity, ISA, we adopted in DPWH their performance governance system scorecard to ensure that we were moving in the right direction and that our achievements were measurable. With the full support of the DPWH family, we were able to measure up to ICD standards and awarded the highest Gold Trailblazer Award. Thank you to Mr. Jesus Stanislao and Rex Dillon for helping us and believing that we could change the culture of DPWH, and of course, thank you to the professionals and career personnel, especially the cadet engineers of DPWH, who believed that we could indeed change the culture and public perception of DPWH by supporting our good governance and anti-corruption program. In my many assignments in the private sector, I have to thank Metro Pacific Chairman Manuel V. Pangilinan for all my appointments. I was president at one time of Maynilad Water Services, president and CEO of Light Rail Manila Corporation, Manila Power Gen when we put up our first solar plant, Metro Pacific Water Investments, and until recently, I am a former president and CEO of Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation. In all these assignments, I made sure that we focus on the public service aspect of our plans and programs and our contribution to nation building. I emphasize that we are in public service operating as a private entity. We made sure that we address the needs and pain points of our customers and communities that we serve. I was lucky to have very professional business unit leaders and key officers like NLEX President, who is here, Engineer Luigi Bautista, is also the National President of Familia, a family-based church organization who took care of the special spiritual needs of North Luzon Expressway employees. At my age of 76, without maintenance medication, don't visit your doctor too often. I have been blessed with good health and able to live a balanced life, spiritually, mentally, physically, and in my social life. I still have my daily exercises, sometimes able to play golf on weekends, go to serious ballroom dancing, and I will continue my advocacy for good governance and anti-corruption program. Please join me in this advocacy particularly in addressing the country's water crisis. I wish and hope that some of my experiences and principles in good governance and anti-corruption measures, based on hard work, political will, transparency, accountability, and citizens' participation, will inspire our next gen and Gen Z future leaders for a better future for all Filipinos. In closing, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the MAP Board of Trustees and its members for this prestigious award, which I also share with my sweetheart of 54 years. Bingay na po sa our granddaughter Nika and husband Attorney George Aves, our apo who is also here, Rafa, our sons, unfortunately Patrick could not make it, Gilbert and Edu who are here with us, and my close friends, some of whom are present here today, for helping me in my journey dedicated to life of public service, for love of God and service to fellow men. To God be the glory. Thank you very much and good afternoon.